All right, this is the bonus episode or bonus content or extra content or whatever you want to call it, where we kind of left the main meat of the episode, and this is the part that's going to be on Patreon. So I didn't really plan for this to be a Patreon exclusive, and I'm not even thinking of it that way. It's just the most logical place to put it. But we're now going to get into, and I mean, we're going to get into the weeds of Doctor Who releases and what was changed. And Andy is probably the most knowledgeable Doctor Who person I've ever actually met and talked to in my entire life. So, man, he knows it all cold, and he's going to go into it. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you would actually reboot something like Doctor Who now that, we've had a few years of the new version of it, and it seems to be maybe going into cold storage again. It's sort of tough to tell. But anyway, enough of me setting this thing up. I'm just going to shut up and let you hear the episode, and here we go.
I bought the last fucking Doctor Who Blu-ray and they used AI upscaling, and I saw people complaining about it. And I'm like, fuck off. AI upscaling is actually will be a useful tool in bringing stuff that was shot in standard definition to high definition. Unfortunately, just like anything, if you don't have any quality control and it's just fucking one guy who's running the entire episode through fucking Topaz Enhance or something, then they're not paying attention to those little details in the background. And what bothered me is, like, here I am always just like, I think this tool will be really useful. I noticed it, and it did kind of bug me. I'm watching fucking Terror of the Zygons, and whenever it's a wide shot of the Doctor and like Harry and Sarah, and they're sort of in the background a bit, their faces do look weird. Like,
They
it's
smear a little,
subtle.
right?
Yeah, and it's like, it's not only that it smears, it's just not them, but like for frames. So like the entire effect, if you're just sort of watching, you can sort of ignore it. And it is a big difference compared to the standard definition version. So when you compare them, you get upset at the faces, but then the actual shot itself is like, oh wow, there is a lot more detail when it's enhanced by AI. And so the comparison is almost like it's kind of unfair, because when you see what their faces look like in the standard definition one, you also can't make out their face. It's a blurry thing of pixelated weirdness. So the AI invents something, and what it invents is not Harry or Sarah, it's some other person, and it is distracting. And so there was some shots where I was a little disappointed, because I was hoping that I wouldn't notice, but I did. And I can be honest and admit that even though I'm thinking in a few years' time, this is going to be a very cool tool for especially up-resing things that don't exist in a proper format. So my example is the Wang Wang action movies, the Filipino star B movies. Wang Wang, who's like this little guy who's like the little James Bond parodies. They only exist as like 120p YouTube videos, and I would love to see them in high definition. And I think that, AI upscaling will be useful in those circumstances, for especially movies, if you're a connoisseur of bad movies, where there is no work print, there is no fucking high definition source to rescan, there is just some shitty fucking VHS bootleg rip that exists on YouTube that sucks. And I think that in cases like that, it would be really cool. I don't think it's cool if it's like a movie like Aliens, where there is a fucking high definition scan of the film that you could have scanned, but instead you lazily just took the 2K and upscaled it. And so now everybody's face in the background look like fucking demons, because you didn't actually go through frame by frame. And again, if you did go through frame by frame, it would have been fine. So I'm I'm going to buy it. It's not out yet, but the Peter Davison final season Blu-ray, which will have AI upscaling as well, because that's just what they're doing now. It looks like it's a bit improved. I watched a YouTube video. There's a guy who posts all the differences when they do the effects comparisons. And they actually have done a few things where I'm like, I've been waiting years for them to do these like updated effects. And so for some stories, I will put up with the upscaling, because they finally, like Peter Davison's final season, has a few stories that are like, that have always baffled me as to their effects, which are, I don't know why. So like Resurrection of the Daleks, I've always loved that one, even though the story doesn't really make sense, but I've always loved it. I love any Doctor Who story where everybody dies at the end. And Peter Davison's last season is fucking it's gold for
That's
that. Like
great.
there's a
I love it.
so
It's great.
there's so many where literally it's just like, especially like, and Warriors of the Deep sucks, but it's got the classic like just like everybody's dead, and then like the doctor just like there should have been
Doctor shows up
another
and goes,
way. Cut to credits.
you
Yeah,
know,
it's like everybody's dead. Like everybody died in that one. Everybody dies in Resurrection of the Daleks.
yeah.
Everybody dies in Caves of Androzani. Um, and so, but what they did, Resurrection of the Daleks, they finally added lasers into the guns, so all the people aren't running around with fucking flashlights with the sound
With cap
effect.
gun like lights going off and little smoke
Yeah,
puffs.
no, there's no smoke puffs in Resurrection of the
Oh yeah,
Daleks.
that's right. Those are just the lights. That one's just
They're
the lights,
just
isn't it?
they are
Looks
just
terrible.
flashlights. Yeah,
Don't pretend it doesn't
and
look terrible, everybody. It looks goofy. It'll look
oh yeah,
better.
no, it's bad. And so for years, I've always been like, because usually they would do little amendments when they released them on DVD, and Resurrection they didn't. And I was like, this is like the one story in like Doctor Who history where it's like, add some fucking laser beams, man. Like they just are shooting flashlights at each other. So they finally did that. Um, they actually did a whole bunch of stuff to Warriors of the Deep, which is actually pretty interesting. They've swapped out the Merca, which is that stupid pantomime horse creature, where it's like just this. It's like notorious in Doctor Who history as being one of the worst effects that has ever been realized on that show. And they actually swapped it out with. It looks like a mix of like sort of puppetry and CGI. So like it retains the basic style of it, but now it actually like fucking moves when it kills people. It's like tongue shoots out and electrocutes them. And they redid the thing where like the one lady at the end goes to like karate fight it, and it's like again one of those like classic, one of the worst scenes in Doctor Who ever, where like the Merker's like stumbling up to her, and then she's doing like this judo move before it electrocutes her. So now she kind of starts it, and then it just grabs her, and then like takes her away, like sort of like in its mouth. And it looks good. I mean, I don't know that it's going to improve the story so much, but they actually did, and they tightened up because the action in that episode is directed so poorly, where you've got these sea devils who are just shuffling, and then they do these wide shot action scenes where you clearly see like there's like six sea devils on this side of the screen and like six humans on the other side of the screen, and they are sort of slowly walking at each other, shooting flashlight laser guns that don't have lasers. And then it's like you can clearly see that they're about maybe 7 feet apart from each other, and like people are just standing there, and it's so bad. And so they've gone in and just inserted close-ups of the guns, close-up shots of sea devils or whatever, just to at least make the action scenes a bit more interesting. I don't think they can save it because I've only seen the effect shots, but at least it looks like okay, they finally did things like when I was younger, I always just thought maybe I can re-edit this episode and just sort of like cut some of these shots down and throw some inserts in there just to make these wide shots less boring. And so they have done that, and I think that's what they always should have done is instead of focusing on fixing the good stories and like adding new effects to those things, I think like their targets should always have been let's fucking focus all our attention on the bad stories because there is going to never be any more classic Doctor Who. So we should focus on like improving the dumb ones, at least to like a watchable factor. And in Caves of Androzani, they did redo the magma beast. That's something I've always been curious as to what they would do, and it looks okay. So it is like a CGI, but they still kept the design the same. And so you still see shots of like the guy in the costume shuffling, but then they'll occasionally cut to like a close up where it's the same design, but it's sort of like CGI, and it kind of move its mouth a bit more and look a bit more animated, or like instead of just a dumb wide shot that's overlit where you clearly see it's just a guy, right? Like they'll cut to like a more dramatic shot of like the head of the thing, just sort of like kind of looking, and it's kind of like a close up of it. And in some cases, my like the argument for improving effects is always when an effect is so bad that you don't understand what's happening. Like that to me is the failure. That's a failure effect. Is like not that when they're cheap, because Doctor Who is full of cheap effects. But if I get it, I'm like, okay, it's a rocket ship taking off. Yeah, I see a string, but I don't misunderstand the story. It's just cheap looking. But there's occasionally some effects that are so bad that it's like, what just happened? So in the Colin Baker Dalek story, there's a scene where a Dalek starts flying and shoots people from like the top of the ceiling. And in the original episode, it's very unclear as to what is happening in that moment because the effect is so poorly done. So when they redid it, it wasn't a great effect even with the redone one because it's always done by a team of like one guy in After Effects. But at least I was like, okay, I get what the scene is now. It's a Dalek that's flying and it's like trying to shoot a guy from like a downward angle. And in the case of Caves of Androzani, which is the best Doctor Who story ever made, there's a few shots that have always been weird where I'm kind of like, what is the perspective? And one of the main ones was um, Peter Davison at the end, where he's got to go get the milk from the Queen Bat. There's some scenes where there's like magma, the hot mud that's like pouring through the cave. And there's one shot where he kind of gets up on a rock and kind of does this. And then you see this shot of mud. And it was always unclear to me, like, what is the perspective of this shot? Like, is mud flying past him? Is he laying on his back? Is he standing? Is he hiding in a crevice? Like, what is actually happening in this shot? And in the new one, it's much clearer now. Like, you see him, and then they've got like sort of like CGI kind of like mud burst like come in, and you can clearly see, oh, he's like up on a ledge. He's on a raised ledge, and the mud is coming below. And now it's clear what is happening. When they get executed at the end of episode 1, there was always this weird effect where they get shot with the machine guns. And then there's like this video effect of like diamonds like shooting all over them when they're in these red cloaks like, getting executed. And it was only like a few years ago that I finally realized, I'm like, oh, they're trying to emulate
A force
what
field.
like no, it's not a force field. It's supposed to be like hits, like bullet hits. And
Those
the
are
way
the
that
impact strikes? That's what those are supposed to... Oh, wow. I always thought they were... Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, sometimes you don't know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. But so I think what they thought was if you just flash a diamond, like a yellow diamond for like a frame, it will look like a spark. And so because really, the point of the scene obviously is that they were actually androids, but the people doing the execution should have thought like the whole idea was they thought they really executed people until they pull their cloaks off and realize that they're androids and it's embarrassment and whatever. So that effect never worked. And when I was younger, I just thought, so I guess Androzani, like it's just weird sci-fi bullets, and that's why it looks like that. But really what it should have always been is like fucking squib hits. And so they did swap them out. They did like the lazy thing of just using the video copilot like smoke puffs that like I could use. But at least it's like, that's what I would have done if they gave me the job, was like, it should look like bullet hits because that effect never made sense. And so things like that are like, okay. And the dragon looks decent. At least it like moves a bit more fluidly than it used to. I think they changed the scene where Morgus pushes the president down, although it still looks dumb, but in a different way. Because in the old one, it was like just sort of this static image of this guy going like, like falling down an elevator shaft. And now they've sort of replaced it where it's like farther away. It looks like a guy falling, but he looks clearly like just a CGI guy. So like a lot of the effects improvements sometimes on these Doctor Who Blu-rays are like lateral, where it's like, okay, I get that this is better, but also the other
It's
one
better
was
in one way, worse in another. So
yeah, the only example, usually I will still watch the new version over the old one, but in the case of the Tom Baker DVD, they redid the Loch Ness Monster, and it is the most why the hell did you do this effect I've ever seen before.
I saw that. Somebody posted with that exact thing, like, why was this the decision that was made? This is no better.
It's
I think
not only
along
it's
those
no
lines.
better, but it's like sometimes there's an argument where I'll watch them and go, okay, I'll be like, hey, this isn't better. It's like a lateral move. This one was the most, everyone wasted their time. It looks identical to the old one. It's not, the old one moves slightly silly, but it still has the charm of being, but they did it in the 70s. This one has no excuse. So now it just looks like a puppeted hand. You can clearly feel that it's just a guy puppeting the thing. It's an improvement in no way. And it's one of the few examples where when I was digitizing the Blu-rays, like I put them on like a media drive, where I'm actually like, I think I'm just going to pick the original version. Like I don't see this effect just draws attention to itself now that you know it's like a new effect. and it looks exactly like the old one, like, and it's no better in any way. And I watched a featurette about it, and it's almost embarrassing watching the featurette because they're like putting all this effort into the puppet and making sure the texture's right. And it shows them filming it and they're trying to get the movement right. And they're watching the footage on the show and trying to do all this stuff. And they're making this big show of how, like, we're going to film it at this many frames a second because when you shoot a miniature, you want to shoot it at a faster frame rate so that everything carries more weight. I watched this whole featurette and then I watched the scene and I'm like, I could have done better than that. And like, we're not even talking about frame rates or anything. It'd just be like, it just felt like such a waste of time. And in that moment, I'm just like, they really should have, like, seeing the CGI they did for this Peter Davison set. I'm like, that's what that Loch Ness needed. It needed to it'd be a CGI redo, where you actually like, because that scene is bad in the original. Like, it looks stupid in the original. Um, but what they did was such a non-improvement. It was just baffling. There's some episodes
Yeah,
where I just feel like, I don't know if it's
you lose the charm excuse where the older stuff you go, look, they had no budget. They wanted to make this thing. They made it. You got to look over it because it was the time. Whereas if you redid it, it's like, well, then why'd you redo it to look almost identical in terms of crappiness? What was achieved here?
And this one was the most of any of those. Like, there have been some times where they've swapped a shitty looking model for an After Effects green screen explosion overlay, where you're like, they took like a green screen explosion off YouTube or whatever, and you watch it like, okay, I mean, it's a little bit better, but then you've sort of lost it. But again, the model you're replacing also sucked. It had a sort of charm but it was a bad model. Like, Doctor Who's had some good models, and there's some episodes where you can clearly see the scale of the model is so small and shitty, and they filmed it too close under like video lights, and you're just like, why did you do this? Um, and so you see what they do to replace it, and it's like, okay, I guess this is better, but now it just looks like a shitty After Effects thing. So, and when you know After Effects, just like, hey, and like just knowing AI and knowing all these things, since I know After Effects, I know what plugins are being used. And so I can tell, like, those Doctor Who DVDs that came out in like, like the mid 2000s, I'm just like, yeah, you're using magic bullet light rays. You just discovered fucking light rays. Good for you. Because like they would just plop that effect on every laser. Now they're better because now they're understanding that you don't make an effect that looks like you did it in 2014. You make it look like a laser that would have been in the 80s. If they had the budget and could actually make lasers that looked like they came out of the guns, this is what they would have done. You try and stay close to the design. I feel like in the Peter Davison set, they did that. They're staying close to the design. The Daleks, when they shoot the lasers, it's a straight beam that goes across the screen. Because I remember when they did the first Five Doctors special edition, they changed the lasers to be like kind of laser bolt things that look more like the modern series, but they didn't do them as well. So they look like kind of lifeless blob that sort of flew across. And I'm like, but that's not what Dalek laser beams looked like in the 80s, right? They were a straight laser beam that went from the gun to the person, and the person went negative. And so if you keep to that idea, and that's what they should do. And so like whenever they get too creative, they lose the magic. But some of the things they've done have been pretty cool and useful. I think the Tom Baker one, his regeneration episode, they added in like a guy in like a Tom Baker costume, like doing a fall from the tower, which was an improvement because in the original episode, there's literally like a stick man, like on a string, and it is a stick man. Like, it's a fucking stick man. They fucking shook a stick man in front of a picture of a fucking radio tower. And so at least this time it's actually like a guy in a costume. And they did sort of a funny face tracking where they sort of put Tom Baker's face like floating on the guy's body, but it's just quick enough. It is stupid looking, but it's quick, and you actually see a guy in a Tom Baker costume do the fall instead of a stick man. And so, it's like in that instance, I'm like, okay, this is still kind of dumb, but it's better at least. So anyway, so I'm going to buy that fucking Peter Davison set, but I know specifically there is a shot where in Frontios, there's an old man who's got glasses on, but they're like spectacles. And Tegan walks past him, and then his glasses are gone. Because if you watch the DVD version, you can see that his face is pixelated enough that you could understand why the AI didn't think he had glasses on anymore. But if you don't monitor these things closely, then the AI just goes, well, the scene started, he had glasses. So it's going to sort of keep glasses on his face as he moves around because it knows that there were glasses there. But once Tegan crosses in front of him, then its memory of that man, it forgets it. And when it passed, because of the way his eyes were pixelated, it didn't look like he had glasses in that frame. So they disappear. That's the problem with the AI upscaling, or it'll do dumb things like read the text on the TARDIS door, and you'll see that quickly that the AI does not understand what words are supposed to be there. But I'm sure you could train an AI upscaler to know those words, you know? So it's like, hey, any shot of the TARDIS, just know that the police call box thing says this. Just know that it says police box in the top bar and not some weird Russian under like upside down symbols. You know, like that's
Well,
like,
or you just have the technician look at the effect after it was done and make sure it was done properly. It takes 15 minutes. Just check it, not just go, okay, save and write or whatever. Or commit.
and if you know the tools, you know what it's going to fuck up.
Right.
So that's important too. And that's why it's good to know how these things work, because when you know that, you go, hey, if I run an AI upscaler, I don't just hit set it and forget it and then render the Blu-ray. You know, what's it going to do? Here's what the AI upscalers fuck up: text, signs, people's faces in the background. So when you go back and look at this stuff, look at all the text, look at all the signs. Like, you know what I mean? Like you would know to look for those specific things. Because for most of the shots, it looks good. And then it also does weird things like making people look like they have rubbery skin, but then giving them age lines. So then that's another AI upscaling thing that's a weirdness where like people look soft, but then they have really defined age lines because that's the detail the AI has added back in. So now people have these very defined forehead creases and age fucking, you know, like crow's feet, but then their skin is smooth everywhere else. And I think that even happened on the Aliens Blu-ray when they upscaled it to 4K or whatever. And so, you know, that's lazy, especially if it's like a big Hollywood movie. You think you'd have the budget to at least fucking watch it and make sure everybody
Yeah,
doesn't look
review the
weird.
effect, sure, and understand what it's actually doing. Like you said, yeah, you would think. So, well, as we near the 4 hour mark, we have solved a number of world problems. Movies shouldn't be made by spreadsheets. Video games shouldn't follow trends. AI is a complicated issue that people should engage with. And Doctor Who, with all of its flaws, is still awesome. And sadly, we'll never get the good stuff again because I agree with you about that. It's just that is a bygone era where I will accept any of the defects as charming compared to whatever they try to do whenever they revitalize these things and fail to understand what made them good. So,
Dude, I got
whatever,
so
we're
many.
older now.
I know it bugs me because I got like things that I would consider very simple ideas as to what would make these things better. Like, because modern Doctor Who, I feel like just has not, it has not been for me what makes Doctor Who special. It's sort of like just this bombastic goof fest that's like where, and I just feel like the show doesn't take itself seriously and it's too silly and whimsical and all this crap. And there's just times where I'm like, dude, like it'd be so, you could cut this budget. And that's what bugs me the most is like the, you know, they'll talk about how high the budgets are. And I think now Doctor Who, especially in the streaming era, is perfectly suited to go back to what it was. Like when Doctor Who first got rebooted in like 2004, one of the things I remember like interviews with like Russell Davies, and he'd be like, you can't do part one and part two anymore of stories because viewers turn away if they see part two. So if they see a thing like Attack of the Cybermen part two, you get less viewership because so every story has to have its own unique name, blah, blah, blah. Now in the streaming age, if Doctor Who went back to 22-minute episodes, actually structured in parts with cliffhanger endings, because that's what hooks people in the streaming age is the cliffhangers. Literally, why I love classic Doctor Who is it's, to me, the best format for all worlds. It's both serialized and standalone. You have the serialization of cliffhanger endings, but then every 4 episodes, the story is over. So you don't feel like necessarily locked into like huge season story arcs or whatever, but you still get the perks of having a serialized story. So you still get your cliffhangers every week, but people can hop in and hop out, you know, like and still get like a little self-contained story. people are fine with shorter episodes. In fact, like that's sort of like an idea, like with Mandalorian and shit. There are some episodes that were like 20 minutes long. So that is no longer a barrier. And it's a budget saver because if you said that we can only make 10 episodes of modern Doctor Who because every story requires different sets and all that stuff. Well, no, it doesn't. You build sets, but then you actually tell the stories the way you used to, where you stretched it over like 4 to 6 parts. Then you use the same sets for that entire chunk instead of building new sets for every 40 minute thing. So to me, I feel like it's a no-brainer that you would save money, go back to like an old classic format. It would work on streaming, lower the budget. So it's like in trying just like focus on just writing cool stories instead of dumb, because the spectacle is completely wasted. Like I watched those Disney ones and like they looked good, but they were dumb. Every one of them was dumb. I think even
Well,
like the one, there was
but
a few that
this is
were
where again
okay. Yeah.
they fundamentally misunderstood what worked about the old one, because you're right, there is not much spectacle in the older episodes, and yet how long did that show run until it got mishandled into hiatus land? But even there, you can do longer. Trial of a Time Lord is both independent and a serialized story that arcs. It is a entire thing, but each of those little segments is its own story as part of, or not that, no, not Key to Time. Which one's the one where the Guardian says, go get the thing? Well, I guess they both do it.
Yeah, that's Key to Time, but both of them do, right? Because both of them have like Trial of a Time Lord has 3 separate little stories in it. I would argue I still don't like story arcs. I'm one of those people
I don't either, but you
them.
could. If they really were dedicated, it can be done in a series both ways. That's what I'm saying is the old series did both and made both work. So that's the perfect counterpoint to, well, we want a longer one. Okay, you can do that. Also, okay, we don't. You can do that.
Also, they never stuck, like, the thing that bugged me was all the PR speak. It's that same thing where they say one thing and then do another thing, or say we're never going to do that and then do it. So like all the stuff that like they said in the first season of like, and we're not going to bring back old villains because we want this thing to be new. All these things like, we don't want to rely on the past. And so, we'll tell stories that might contradict whatever. And then Russell T Davies like goes into some stuff that's like so fan heavy that even to me, it's sort of like, why would you think this would work? Like in the Disney version, when they brought back fucking the bad guy from Pyramids of Mars, Sutek.
Oh, Set? No, not Set.
Sutek is what they call him, but I think he's based on Set. Yeah. So Sutek, and again, I love Pyramids of Mars. That's one of my favorites. But like the way that they brought him back was so shitty, and the fact that they like anyone would give a fuck that Sutek returned was handled so poorly. And then to top it off, he was a CGI dog, was dumb. And when they like did the reveal, like I don't know why there's still Doctor Who fans who don't know like Russell T Davies writing tricks at this point. But I'm like, how many seasons does this guy have to make for you to learn that it is not going to add up? Don't bother looking at the clues. He doesn't even know where this story is going. And when it finally gets there, it will not make sense. All the clues that you thought mattered didn't, because even the clues that he seeded don't matter. And it always happens every single season finale that guy writes. And everyone still acts like, oh, but that lady, she's not saying, oh, that lady's going to turn out to be important. Oh, this is going to turn out to be important. I'm like, dude, none of this is going to be important. Haven't you learned? Fucking Bad Wolf, the one that made the most sense, didn't make any sense. So you think now that this, like, anytime I think about any season finale that man wrote was like, he would lay the seeds for all of these clues that always meant nothing, because that guy does not have any interest in writing a coherent science fiction plot. He has ideas in his head and he tries to string them together the best he can, and they never add up. And occasionally he does write a cool story that's almost feels like a surprise when it happens. Like whenever there's one like, actually, that was pretty good. But it's never the one that matters. It's always like the middle story. Like even in the Disney era, it's never the finale or the premiere that are good. There's like some random episode 5 that'll be like, actually, that story was pretty good. And so that's another thing too, where like, and I feel like Doctor Who's been like that for so long that I think that now if people have become fans of that show, to them, that's what Doctor Who is. It's like, it's not what the classic series, like, oh, Doctor Who, it's that quirky, weird show where like they play like this whimsical, bouncy, stupid music, and at the end of the day, the story really didn't matter. It's the friends we made, or whatever. And like, cause I don't know how many finales I can be just so disappointed by, or just episodes that just end where you're just like, what? Why did pressing the button do that? Why was there even a button when you introduced this thing 2 minutes before the episode was over just so you could resolve it? Like stuff like that drives me crazy as a nerd. And I feel like Doctor Who doesn't even need those things. That's why it pisses me off, because it's like you could bring the budget way down and make a way better show if you just focused on atmosphere and like cool music. Like I think you like it would do like a lot of the heavy lifting, and just fucking cast nobodies, no stunt casting, just fucking find a weirdo. I've said this a billion times. I don't even think the Doctor has to be a good actor. And I love that show. I think that you need to find a genuine weirdo, someone who's just commands their presence by just when they're on screen, you have to look at them. And even if they can't really act, I think that that would power the weirdness of the show, like to give it like that sort of unique feeling, like just like, because I'm done with like Doctor cries too much now. He's crying all the time. Disney one, that new, like the Doctor cried in every fucking episode. I'm just like, what is this? Like, not every
Yeah,
episode.
I think I've told you this before. Maybe I haven't. I would love a number one. I think the show needs to go away for a few years, maybe more than a few years. And when it comes back, how I don't know how you're ever supposed to pronounce it. Is it Ronnie or Ronai? I don't even know how it's supposed to be pronounced.
The Ronnie.
Okay.
The Ronnie.
I want a whole season of the Ronnie, single bottle episodes doing morally gray shit. And occasionally maybe running across the Doctor and beating him. And then maybe running across the Master and like teasing him and then throwing him into a black hole. And just kind of like with Star Wars, get away from the core stuff for a while and let's explore the concept in interesting ways where I don't have to worry about the Doctor's going to have to regenerate. You're going to have to worry about how to explain that it's the 50th time. Put all that shit in a box, store it on a shelf. Then you don't need all the same villains. You can still have some pop up, but you can do new villains, and the Ronnie can just be bouncing around and exploring the weird sides of Doctor Who. And occasionally you do little name checks, or she goes to a planet that the Doctor's going to go to at some point, but something completely different is happening, and it just resets everything. And you don't have to worry about all the baggage.
Well, that's the thing. Because I agreed, again, with some of the stuff they said when they rebooted the show. Fundamentally, I agreed with some of the points, but they didn't mean them, right? So, like I said, with the episode titles and people not watching, and then they sort of acted like it's going to be, we're going to basically, they didn't say reboot, but like we're going to start fresh, right? With the Christopher Eccleston one, we're not going to reference the old show that much. It's going to be a fresh place for people to join the show. They don't have to know the old series, and then the way in which they abandoned that is like. Because I sort of agreed, and it sort of made me mad, kind of as a fan, because I'm like, no, I want to see a continuation of my show. But okay, I'll go along with them for this. And then within minutes, old companions are coming back, referencing episodes that the new audience had never seen. Villains coming back with pre-designed like pre-existing animosities to the Doctor that we've never met, referencing planets and stories that we've never seen. Now, as a classic Doctor Who fan, I liked all those moments, but then it made me think, so all that crap about fresh start was bullshit, right? Now, because the way they've driven the franchise down to a point that it is just so far from what I liked, it's such a weird headspace to be in as a fan, to know that 10 years ago, if I was in the position where I could have been hired to produce Doctor Who, which obviously would never happen, but I mean, if I did, like in my fantasy, it would have been a total continuation, right? It would have been totally, we need to explain why the Doctor regenerates into the new one. Everything's got to be explained. I'm going to fucking go, whatever happened to Perry when she left at the end of Trial of a Time Lord? All this stuff, right? That Big Finish is probably handled. But like, I would have done all that stuff on the screen because I'm such a nerd that I would want to see that stuff. Now the franchise is in such a place, even being that kind of lifelong Doctor Who fan, I truly believe, and if you gave me the power right now, like Netflix is coming, they want to do a new like 13 episode season, I would be the one going, we got to do a clean fucking reboot. I'm sorry. I love Doctor Who so much. There is no salvaging the nonsense that they've done. The new show has to be, and if it's not a reboot, and I don't mean reboot in the sense of like reboot, I just mean do the thing that they said they were going to do in the first place. A clean jumping off point for new fans. Do not bog it down with lore, with the show's history. Don't deny the history, but just don't talk about it. But really, like, that's the series Bible that you tell the writers. Like, just like, look, I just want new stories. It is not contradicting anything that's happened. Even the storylines I think are shit. We're not going to contradict them. Just like the Doctor being half human in the movie, never being mentioned again. We're not going to mention this fucking timeless child bullshit. We're not going to mention that the Doctor is some fucking actually an alien from another dimension who's magical. All this fucking nonsense. The magic of the show is, yes, he's an alien who can fucking regenerate when he dies, but he is not some magical god that shows up that commands respect instantly from people, blah, blah, blah. He's got to solve problems. He's got to get out of things the hard way. He's got to use his ingenuity to fucking figure things out. He does not have a magic wand. The sonic screwdriver can just unloose, like it can just do screws. It can unscrew screws and it can make computers blow up. That's all it do. It shoots a fucking sonic wave that can destroy electronic equipment and open doors. It cannot untie ropes. It cannot fucking scan. There's no screen on that thing. It makes no sense. Like throughout the new series when he would like take readings on it. I'm like, what are you even looking at? Like, what do you mean take readings? Like if there's a screen, it's like a little calculator sized thing. What can that thing possibly tell you? Like just shit like that just drove me nuts. And like every week he would use it like a wand and it just drove me crazy. And like, I'm like, dude, I'm perfectly happy for the Doctor to have funny gadgets that he uses. But they need to follow rules so that the audience understands the stakes and understands what it does, because then there's drama. Then there's like, hey, the Doctor's stuck in a room, but hey, I'm thinking one step ahead of the character. He's got that thing that can take screws off. Maybe he can undo that thing. But as soon as you're like, it can just do anything, like I can just fucking point it at a fucking window and like the window turns into like a sunglasses or something. It's sort of like, well, how? Like what mechanism took place here that made that happen? And so I would reboot and I would just do like, it's got to be, we got to stick to this as a rule, as much as it hurts as a fan to not want to just in my heart go, I just want to reference my favorite stories. It's like we got to do it so cleverly that even if we throw a reference to the old show, it has to be so buried or it has to be so intrinsic to the plot that this story literally does not work unless we reference that the Doctor visited Androzani before. That's the only way. It's so important to the plot. Other than that, I would do a you don't need to watch the old show, and I mean it. And that hurts as a fan because I would want nothing more. But I think as a fan, I would prefer
well,
just
that's
to have
what we
good
got,
Doctor
and
Who.
you see what they did. So this is the lesson: is you know what? Maybe we don't need because I'm the same type where that first Eccleston season, I was more excited when it was nothing I understood, like nothing I remembered. The only episode that was the exception was the Dalek episode. I thought that if that was in fact the end of them, that one where it's the single one in the basement, that's a great episode. But then they completely undid the whole point of it because it wasn't the last one. But if it had been, and that was the end of them, that would be a classic episode along with all the old ones. If they had stuck with that and the Daleks had never come back, except maybe, he travels back in time and sees like Davros, whatever, one-offs. You would sit there and go, wow, how could the balls to kill off the signature villain and stick with it? You'd remember. But no, they just undid it almost immediately. And it's like, oh, they're back. All right. It's back to the Daleks
I think also too, they don't quite get the Daleks. Like I think there's a few that are okay in the new series. But one thing that struck me, and I hadn't thought about this until more recently, like Genesis of the Daleks is one of my favorite Dalek stories, the Tom Baker one where he goes back to when they were made. And even then it contradicts the William Hartnell version of the Dalek origin, whatever.
But it's so good you don't care. You really just don't care because it's so well done.
And one thing about that story that I always fucking loved, and I never really realized what it was. The Daleks are so much more menacing in it, but because the thing is, they don't talk a lot in that story. See, Davros does all the talking. And then the Daleks, they show up and they do say exterminate and stuff like that, but they don't say exterminate every time. And that's what makes my favorite Dalek kills of all time are the ones where they don't say anything. And Genesis of the Daleks is a bunch of those. And in the new series, they do that thing. Well, this is what Daleks do, is they constantly say their catchphrase. And so they're not as cool or as menacing because they're always fucking just yelling all the time. And in the classic, like in Genesis of the Daleks, there's the one where, Davros has the Daleks kill all the scientists except the ones who are loyal. And then he realizes, oh shit, the Daleks are actually ruthless. I gotta fucking shut them down. And he tells his right hand man to go like, oh, press the button. And then he walks over to the machine, and then there's just a Daleks is just like kind of side eyeing him. It's like one of my favorite shots where the Daleks' eye is sort of looking, the Daleks like looking at him like this with the guns, and then doesn't say anything, just shoots him. It's awesome. And so like he walks up to the machine, and then right before he has a chance to press the button, just cuts through a Dalek, kills him. I love that shot. I love in Resurrection of the Daleks when they come in to stop the guy. He's gonna detonate the ship. The last clone guy who's gonna sacrifice himself and blow up the ship. And then he's just sitting there, and he's like sitting in front of the machine. Three Daleks just show up at the door, and there's just sort of like a pause, and there's like, just shoot him. They don't say anything, and then but he's alive enough that he can still hop on the fucking machine and press the button and blow up the ship. Those are my favorite Dalek things when they don't say anything, and it makes them so much more like calculated and evil and more menacing when they're not talking all the time. And like, if you go back in Doctor Who history, the 60s Daleks do talk all the time, and they do say a lot of dumb things because like they make a lot of noise. So like the 1960s black and white ones where they're just like, I am going in here now. What? Like they all actually like say ums and ahs and stuff, like because they're less robotic. But when they don't talk, they're fucking a lot cooler. And so that's one thing that I wish they would bring back for those characters. Like you can have episodes where they don't really have to say too much, and it's cooler. Like there's something just really cold about a Dalek just going into a room and shooting everybody in it and not saying anything. And it's just like, you get it. Like they don't need to announce exterminate all the time. And so that would be cool. I don't know. I would love them to do a fresh reboot. I think at this point in time, I would just want good Doctor Who. And I will take the sacrifice if they don't talk about the old show ever again. They don't need to bring back any of the actors. They all look different anyway, so it's just weird. And again, that hurts me because I would have been that nerd. When you're that nerd in that place and it's like, fuck, if you had talked to me like 10 years ago, I would have been like, there should be an episode where all the classic doctors show up as fucking holograms in the TARDIS. And that way we could still get the same actors, but like it could be a body double and you just have to film their face and make it float over here. So you don't have like Colin Baker, who looks like a completely different human now than he was when he was like the doctor. I would be that guy. I would be trying to tie things to classic episodes all the time. I would be rewriting plots I didn't like. I'd be like, hey, remember the Slitheen? They don't exist anymore. We erased them. Oh, we erased the timeless child. We went further back in time. And actually the doctor is just a time lord. And that was the master. And, I would be doing all that retconning shit to like but then you can't retcon. I know it's like this such a nerdy idea, but the problem is, we probably talked about this before. Once something exists, it just exists. And you can't do anything about it. You can't do anything about RoboCop 3. It sucks that it exists. It's a stupid movie. But you can't do anything about it. And you can make, hey, this RoboCop actually ignores it. Hey, this Predator movie pretends that Predator 2 didn't happen. Hey, this movie pretends that fucking the last 2 Halloweens didn't happen. Actually, this Halloween pretends that the last 5 Halloweens didn't happen. This Halloween pretends all the Halloweens except part 1 didn't happen. And at the end of the day, all those movies exist. They're all in our minds. They haven't been deleted. You can go on, Paramount Plus right now and watch them. So I think the whole idea of retconning is like, it's just a flawed, nerdy idea that at its heart can never work because you will never forget the shitty movie you saw. You can pretend. You don't have to watch it. I don't have to watch Terminator Genesis, but I know it exists. And I know it tries to pretend that Terminator 3 and Terminator Restitution or whatever doesn't exist. And then that Terminator Dark Fate pretended that those other Terminators didn't exist. And at the end of the day, they all existed. And like, it's like you're trying to play a trick on yourself that you can't. You were too smart. Like you can't pretend you didn't see those shitty movies. And would it have been cool if they made an Alien movie that pretended that part 3 didn't happen, even though I like part 3, but like, it would have been interesting. But I will always remember Alien Resurrection. Like you can't, like it's never going to end. Like it's never going to, So I feel like all you can do is just move forward and just not talk about it. Just
Well,
make another
no,
Terminator.
you are correct, and I'm of the same, because if I gone back to before Phantom Menace came out and you said we're going to do a movie that gets into Darth Vader's backstory and we're going to show you how it happened, that's the greatest idea. All right, I want to see, because he's so awesome in the originals. What happened? We hear about it, and then we saw it, and oh. Juju bees or whatever Jar Jar Binks says, and Misa so stupid to think this
Yeah.
good. No, it sucked.
I would argue that we didn't see the most interesting part of,
Well,
of Darth Vader's order. Like that's the
you are
problem.
correct. You are absolutely correct. But that's what we have, and it exists, and you can't pretend it doesn't, even if you'd like to. And that's what I mean about give me the Ronnie then, just where I don't have to think about all that other stuff. Fine, it all exists, but it's over there.
Yeah.
And now I can actually come
I don't know
into
if you
a
were paying
fresh
attention,
character.
but she got eaten by a big skeleton man in the second season.
Yeah,
You
like that fucking matters. That's okay. We'll go back before that happened. We'll go back to the 80s version of the Ronnie. Big poofy hair and a TARDIS. I'm fine. She's rocking fucking Wham, because let's just go ahead and do that. And I'm good with it. That's okay. Just different stuff. But yeah, you're right. It's foolish to pretend it's not there. It is there.
And I think I feel I've been thinking about this too, because I've been listening to all this Terminator music, like I said, and it's been sort of inspiring my brain to be like, I was thinking about what would actually be a cool way to reboot Terminator, or just do like a standalone thing, because they're always going to try and they're always going to fail because they keep on tying it to the original timeline or tying it to the undoing of the timeline. And I love Terminator 1 and I love Terminator 2. And like in Terminator 1, I think what people kind of forget the tone of that film, because it is a very like 80s movie, but it's a horror film. And, part two is not, right? Like part two is a big blockbuster action movie. Part one is a horror movie. The endoskeleton at the end is a surprise. It's like to say the villain's still alive and look, he's a fucking robotic skeleton. Like that's like left to the end. You don't know they look like that until the end of the movie. And it's played very much like it's just this unstoppable killing machine. And that got me thinking, like, especially with the AI conversation, what is a way you could sort of reframe that story to be like relevant, and then streamline it? So I think they could redo Terminator without even time travel as a thing. Like don't tie it to the original thing. Make it be like a focused horror movie. And there's sort of a thing I've never seen done, and I think it would be pretty cool. So like with AI, you have the real world where AI is integrated in everything now. What happens if the AI turns bad? But instead of the Terminator version of like the AI shoots all these missiles in the air, well, the AI takes over the devices. One day it decides to kill humanity and starts driving people's cars off of fucking bridges in one instant. Like every way a device, like sends people fake news saying like, hey, your wife cheated on you. And you have like these montages of people like killing their neighbors and stuff and all this shit because the AI like tricked them. And then humanity, is still here. And then they decide, okay, we have to abandon AI. We have to go back to living before these sorts of things. And so that's the world the movie takes place in. But the AI still exists in a fucking data center somewhere, or like a factory in the middle of nowhere. And it makes one Terminator. That's all it can do. Like it's been completely cut off, right? But it still exists enough and it still wants to kill people. So it makes one robot that looks like a Terminator, like a classic Terminator, but it doesn't have fake skin or whatever. And then it just walks to like a Halloween store where they make those, those realistic masks people wear, like the Walter White or whatever. It puts on one of those things in a trench coat. It walks into like a suburban area or like a small city and just systematically kills every single person it comes in contact with. And then that's the movie. It's Terminator. It's a fucking AI. And like the AI basically pours itself into that robot as its last vestige of survival. This is like maybe like 10 years after humanity has abandoned AI products. And then just tell the story in a very straightforward way. What would you do if a fucking robot man just walked into town and just was fucking door to door, boom, 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 go to the next house? Because and then we don't have the internet anymore. We're not interconnected. So we've gone back to basically like the 80s style of living, right? Because people don't want AI in their stuff. And then how would you stop it? Like there is no scene where someone just goes on the radio and like, bring me the army. And then there's a tank there. And like, what would be and then have a Terminator movie where you take it so seriously and the robot does not act dramatically. It doesn't do anything for dramatic pauses or anything. So when it sees a person, it just instantly goes and kills them. It doesn't pause, it doesn't stop and think. The only time it ever even considers is which human is closer to it. And so that's when it will that's the decision it makes. You know what I mean? And like how cool of a movie that would be to then actually go straight forward for real. How would the humans plan? How would they even know what was going on? You're in a suburban neighborhood, so you're not around like army men. So when people start figuring out there's this fucking guy, they wouldn't even know it's a robot. They just think it's some crazy guy running around killing people. How would they organize around trying to stop it? You know what I mean? You know, they get the police to figure out who it is, but it's so good at killing that it just starts fucking offing people. Then they start shooting at it, realizing it's bulletproof. What would you actually do? And then that's where the drama from the story would come from. It's just like how, like logically, and then write it in that way. What would you do? Like, what would you do? You, Joe, you look out your window and you see a guy fucking just blowing people away. Like, what would you actually do as like a regular citizen to try and stop just this fucking killing machine that's just a robot skeleton? And then that's the movie. Like no time travel. It would still be Terminator in that like it's a Terminator, like it's a robot skeleton man. Maybe it has like maybe like that's the hook, like the Mike Myers thing, like it's wearing a celebrity face mask. You know what I mean? And that's how you get away with you cast like some celebrity as the character because like he's wearing a rubber mask of that actor until it gets blown off his face or something. And
Well, I
then
don't even think you have to do that because we have the trope of the serial killer wearing a Halloween mask, like a scary mask. So you can even play it where they think it's just a normal maniac who's got a mask on. Like you said, trench coat, wearing black gloves, almost like Italian slasher style, just walking around. And if you make it where when the AI rebellion happened, AI had been baked into guns, so they destroyed guns, and all you've got is really hand weapons. So it takes them a while to figure out that he's metal because they're just like he's batting away the spears and he's grabbing the knives, and they're like, oh man, he's just stopping all. He's great at close hand-to-hand combat until somebody tears the coat or it gets so soaked with blood that it just starts to drift off him because he's killed so many people. Yeah, there's a way to do it, and even the glowing eyes behind the mask would be really creepy if there's a point where you realize that he's got glowing eyes.
Yeah, because I think at the heart of it, again, like when I talk about the franchises I like and I consider what is it that I like about this thing, and to see so many franchises mishandled because it just feels like the people in control of the IP don't get why people like the thing, and then and like so that's frustrating. And to me, so like yeah, like when I think of Star Wars, I think honestly it's simple. It's Star Wars isn't complicated. It's not like I think like getting it bogged down with weird, like sort of political things and stuff where I'm just like, dude, this literally is a franchise about people with cool names and capes with laser guns in space. Like it's like playing with toys. Like you don't have to make this more than it is. And then there's other franchises like Star Trek that are way more suited to be like, hey, we can actually tell like parallel Earth stories using actual like political things that are happening, but reframing it as sci-fi. But then the key is reframing it as sci-fi, not literally going like, hey, we're going to go to space now. And look, there's ice. And there's, like, because then it gets corny and preachy. But you have your alien version of those characters who are doing the same thing, but you're telling it through a science fiction like allegory. And that's what Star Trek can do. And then, but they're not doing it with that. They're telling dumb fucking blockbustery explosion science fiction stories with the Star Trek franchise now that fans are not keen on. And it's sort of, and so for me, but Terminator, I don't think time travel is integral. I think like, again, it's like, I think the silhouette of the skeleton robot, I think that is like Terminator. I think even the song to a degree, because I love the score.
No, I think you're right about the terror element, though, because like when he's just killing all the cops and there's nothing, he's just fucking blowing people away, like the car, and then he's just gunning people down. And it's really the moment where you realize he's fucking unstoppable. Like he's just mowing through people who are heavily armed and they can't do shit.
And even then, he still acts like it's still a movie with dramatic stuff where the Terminator will still pause and think and like, in moments where the Terminator could have killed, like, even though they're great movie, like I love the first two Terminators and Terminator 2, there's parts where you go, it's a robot and his mission is kill John Connor. That is my mission. I'm a robot. I have a singular purpose to kill. But there's plenty of times where the T-1000 will not instantly kill him when he sees it, right? Like he stops behind the gate, looks at him, then decides to do liquid metal shit and walk through the bars or whatever to get close to them and then start shooting. And I'm always thinking, again, it's a wicked scene, it's a wicked movie. But I always think, wouldn't it be interesting to actually try and write it where you go, what if the robot doesn't do that? Like, what if the robot actually behaves like if his mission is to kill humans, there is no thought. It's the second you walk in a room and there's a human, it's just instant neck snap. Like, even when he grabs a person, his mission isn't to hurt them. It's not to punch them across the room. It's to kill them. So the second there's a person next to him, he doesn't kick them across the room and fight them for 5 minutes. His first move is instant punch through grab their heart or grab their neck and just fucking break their head off. Like, and then because it's going to make it so much harder for the other characters in the movie to sort of just figure out what is the motivation. We don't even have enough time to think around this thing to come up with a plan, because if we're near it, he's killing people. And like, so you're always going to be trying to get away from it. And then but you have to stop it because it is just fucking going through the city, just killing people indiscriminately. And so I think the writing of that would be fun. It's sort of, when I would watch those behind the scenes where they talk about like Breaking Bad and like how they're like sort of writing their stories, and how they would just basically write the characters into a problem, and then like the fun part of the writer's room is like, okay, well now we've got all our characters in this serious problem and this to be continued, like how does he get out of this situation? And that's the fun part of like writing, basically like throwing all these problems at your characters and then trying to figure out clever ways to get out of it. And I think it would be cool to write from the perspective of like, just what do you do? Like this robot just walked in and it's just killing people. Like, how do you actually get your heroes out of this situation? I think that would be so cool. I think that would just be like a really interesting movie. And then short, it's to the point. The movie's over when they defeat the Terminator. You don't have to have a fucking 3-hour epic thing. And if it is a movie about a robot killing people through the whole thing, then it's also like a fun sci-fi horror film that people like, where you get to do all these creative and silly kills, because like the whole movie is literally just a Terminator walking in a room, throwing people into shit and breaking them in half and stuff. So you have all these like practical effects that would be like, on that point of view would be like fun to watch. And then like a serious threat. So you actually feel excited when they defeat him, because like what would you do? That'd be so cool.
Well, and no, it's a good idea, because the other thing is you save on the budget, where if you have him in a trench coat and a mask, you just have a person there. You don't have to show the skeleton all the time. There's no laser guns. There's no real special effects. I mean, the only thing that I can realistically see them not doing, because modern movies are often afraid to do this, and I'm always kind of amazed when it happens, is if he's going to walk into a suburban town,
yeah, I know,
he's going to have to start killing some children.
Yes.
Which they're never going to do, but man, he's going to have to take a kid and throw that kid into a fucking fan blade or something, because you're not going to have a town with no kids.
I think the solution to that, because that would be studio note number one, would just be like, so does he kill kids? Is that he ends up in the fucking financial district or something. You know what I mean? Like maybe he just walks and he's in a straight line. So he ends up downtown in a city where, yes,
the other way out, there is another way out that I just thought of, which is, okay, once they realize what's happening, that there is a maniac, they get a school bus, they put all the kids into it, and they tell the local teacher, they get 3 or 4 of them, and they're like, get out. Well, if don't come back until somebody calls you, but otherwise get the hell out of here, because
that makes sense.
This thing doesn't seem to care. Get all the kids out, which is a cop out, but it's a way to do it.
That would be it.
That's the only way.
You still have him maybe kill one, just to show that's always the signal. Like,
you have to do a teenager. You have him kill an 18-year-old or a 16-year-old, because that's more palatable.
The kid's like holding his ID up just to make sure. Yeah. Just to be clear, I am not a kid.
No, seriously, that's how you set it up. Is the scene before the thing walks in, like before anybody knows it, you get a scene of that kid talking to his friends, like, look, I just faked this ID, man. We're going to be able to get into that bar on Friday night. This thing says I'm 21, and they always said, even though I'm 16, I look like 21. Yeah. And then he just rips the head off, and it's like the ID goes flying, and nothing. That's it. It's done. And Terminator steps on the ID as it goes by, leaving a bloody boot print on it. You're like, there you go, done. And now get the kids out. That's how you do it. So, Yeah, I
Yeah,
look
no, that's
forward to
yeah.
when we write this movie together in 10 years. This will be great.
Yeah.
So,
I just like I like that got me excited though too because I just like that would be so cool and so simple. They'll never will. It's the same with Batman and all that stuff. I think Batman would make a wicked TV show, but because of the way things have been done, the people who make the decisions are just like, no, Batman has big budget, fucking $200 million movies where the city blows up at the end. That's what Batman is. I'm like, no, Batman is a fucking like honestly, you could do a TV show and your big expense is at the beginning of the season is the Batcave set, the car, and the costume. Once you have those three things, it's just a fucking crime show. Like they have fucking fist fights and car crashes, and like my wife watches that 911 show, which is junk. But the point is, that's just regular police, like in 911 people, and they go into space on that show and shit. Like it's nonsense. And so I'm like, if they can have fight scenes in regular TV shows, like, choreographed fight scenes and like a car explosion once an episode and this shit, then you can do Batman. And then like you save the big, if you really need spectacle, you save that for the 2-part season finale. So like you tell regular fucking detective stories with a bit more action because it's Batman. So like, yeah, you can have a bit more fight scenes, but there's so many TV shows on TV now where there's fight Reacher. He fucking fights people all episode. Why can't that be Batman? Oh, the only difference is the guy's a Batman costume. So you pay the expense and get a cool costume made at the beginning of the season, and then he wears that all episode. Like it doesn't have to be. I feel like they just have this idea that they always have to be spectacle, and then ironically, we'll make shows like The Flash be a TV show. Well, like anytime that guy does anything, it's a special effect. You got to draw stupid electricity beams on the screen or whatever. Like where Batman, the cool things he does are all things that a human actor can do in a costume, like just fucking pretend to throw a batarang. Fuck, you know what I mean? Like
well,
it's
that's what I feel like Arrow was doing is they wanted to make Batman the TV show, but they didn't have Batman. So they did Arrow because essentially Arrow is Batman in those early seasons. He's just called Arrow or Green or whatever the hell they called him, but he was acting like Batman. I mean, he really was just Batman with a different name on it. So you definitely could do it. And a lot of the Batman villains do not require a lot even of makeup. You can do it very simply. I mean, obviously, if you're going to do Killer Croc and shit like that, but then just don't do them. Make it Mr. Zaz or, the Mad Hatter, who's just a little weird looking guy with a big hat. Well, I'm pretty sure you can afford a big hat and just have him, be obsessed with Alice in Wonderland. It's not going to be that difficult. So I agree. This stuff it's not going to take a multi-billion-dollar budget. And you can just have Batman helping out the cops when they can't figure things out because he's very smart and he knows how to. I mean, Gotham Central was a comic they did, I don't even know how many issues, and Batman was a side character. It was about the cops and them trying to solve crimes, and they actually didn't want Batman around because he was making them look bad. So they were trying to get better at solving crime without him. So these setups are there, but you're right. The idea is everything has to be way over the top. When, of course, it doesn't, because there's plenty of grounded stuff that's successful, but it's just this A to B mentality that if we're going to use a character that people have seen in a big budget movie, then everything has to be a big budget movie looking thing, which is nonsense. That's not true. You can definitely do it without having it to be way, way bigger than it needs to be. These things can be successful. So
yeah,
it'll
I
never
agree.
happen, but
Yeah. It just bugs me because I feel like it's
no, they
like
overdo it, and then when it fails, they
like
use
the
it as an
idea is
excuse to keep overdoing it instead of just working smaller. Bring the scale down so that you don't have to spend all this money on marketing and budget and actors and everybody and effects. And then you don't need it to be the next, I don't know, whatever the biggest budget movie is or the biggest TV show is. If you scale down how much you're spending, the margin of success becomes more limited too. So you don't need to be pulling number one all the time. You just need to be successful. Can it not be enough to just be successful? Does it not have to be Jaws level success on every goddamn thing? And of course, in their estimation, it does. That's the core problem.
yeah, it bugs me. Yeah, it's like once the idea gets in their heads of like this is what the audiences want or this is what makes the thing successful, and I just feel like they're wrong. I don't know who they is here, like just like the fucking the industry or whatever, but it's like they just it's with Batman, it could be a low budget thing and it would be just as good. In fact, it would be what people want to see. because we've seen Spectacle Batman, and like whenever Batman does rudimentary detective work, people are always like praising those parts of the movie, and then you kind of pay attention and be like, he really didn't do much of anything. Like, even when like Batman Begins or Dark Knight, uh, the Dark Knight, he actually does some detective-y things, or he does analyzes stuff and whatever. And like, yeah, it kind of doesn't make sense part of it, but it still got people happy because like, hey, it's Batman actually like not just punching people, like he's doing that thing that we like. And so to make a whole show of that where you actually just tell proper like adventure stories, and that could be like the hook, that could be like the exciting thing. Like I've been watching a lot of MacGyver lately. Um, and MacGyver is awesome. I actually appreciate MacGyver unironically. It's a stupid show, but it goes back to that thing I love of standalone episodes, and it's kind of dumb, but it gives you what you want. And every episode, there's always that hook where he's gonna figure something out. He's gonna have a few things in his pocket, and he's gonna take this wire and connect it to this and defuse the bomb or whatever. And that's always like the hook of the episode. Like that's the part you're waiting for as like the MacGyver fan. Like, what's the problem he's going to get into and how is he going to solve it with his fucking Swiss Army knife and a pack of gum or whatever. And what I love is that that is actually what MacGyver is. So all the jokes people have ever made about MacGyver over the years, like when you actually go back and watch it, it is that stupid. Like he does solve problems in ways that make no sense, that are so dumb, but that still is like the hook of the show, and it's awesome. And I love that, like, you week to week, you just know like when you know what you're going to get. So there's sort of like a comfort watch thing. And I feel like there's so many like cool characters, like Batman, for example, like that could be the thing. Just like every episode, like what's the thing you always look forward to in an episode of Batman is like the villain's going to throw him in a fucking box and Batman's going to have to use his ingenuity to fucking get out. And every week Batman ends up in some dumb situation where he's locked in a thing or he's trapped or whatever. And he's got to use his smarts. His batarangs don't work. So he's got to be clever and fucking whatever. And that could be like the hook of the show. And it would be cool because it's Batman. And yeah, whatever. Anyway, sorry.
No, I agree with you, but we are now at 4.5 hours.
Okay.
So we probably should wrap things up, or you know, I mean, I could talk about this stuff for 8 hours, but my knees would probably give out and I'd collapse at some point. So
I lose my voice lately because I don't make as many shows, and so now I notice like whenever I go to record, my voice starts to crackle like minutes into the recording because I'm like, oh wow, like I guess I don't really record as many episodes as I used to, and I feel like my vocal cords. Ironically, today I feel like I'm crackling less, but this isn't for my show. So the second I start recording Beyond Synth, all of a sudden my voice
it's
starts
psychosomatic.
Again.
It's kicking. Yeah. Well, that's and it's.
It could be.
I've had the same thing where I'm sitting here going, how do I talk this long and my voice doesn't go? And now I've realized that, oh no, because now we're doing movie commentaries 2 or 3 nights a week, and we're recording our co-op in every friggin' game we play. Every night of the week, I'm talking for at least 2 hours. So my voice is becoming better. And now, of course, the shows are getting longer. I'm like, motherfucker, okay, I can't. We're talking for 3 hours. Like, and people still seem to enjoy it, but I'm just sitting here going, holy shit, the amount of material that I'm cranking out that nobody's going to give a fuck about is extraordinary. But, that's, that's
my
the
life.
entire
That's
show's
my life.
synopsis. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So, so to wind up, because I don't know how to end shows, but I will attempt to do it as I always do.
Well, you wind them down, first of all. That's
as I attempt to wind this down,
yes,
I'm going to remind everybody that you can find Beyond Synth over at BeyondSynth.com. You can support it through Patreon.com/BeyondSynth. I'm pretty sure it's on every single platform that you can get a podcast from. That's it. So it's that simple. There's a lot of really good music. And one thing that we can point out, just to loop back to the AI discussion for one final thing, is Andy features human creators and human artists and human music on his show. And that's the counterbalance, is all that stuff is actual creators who he interviews and talks to and features their music. So he's not using Suno to do all the music in his show. No, all that stuff is by people that he talks to and interviews and plays music
Yeah, unless
from.
people fucking send me AI shit, and because it's happened. What spawned that whole thing was because I got duped by an AI person. And honestly, the whole reason why I'm doing OG season, which is probably going to like lead into next year, because I'm not doing as many episodes. And so I don't think I can just restrict OG season to one season if I only end up doing 20 episodes in the year instead of like what I normally do. So it's probably going to keep extending. And it's honestly out of laziness because I don't want to vet AI music, it takes a lot of time and it's annoying. And so to me, it's just like, I'm just going to talk to people I trust and then hope that society sorts out the AI music thing. So, I mean, I don't mean sort it out as in don't allow people to use it. I just mean give very clear and easy ways to identify it so that, because at the end of the day, it's like I said before, I've heard things that I think are cool. I just don't have any interest in it. Doesn't like the creative aspect of that. What energized me in the first place of doing Beyond Synth was that I know how to make AI. I know how to make music using like DAWs and stuff on computer. So what impressed me was people using tools I know how to use, but actually making professional music where what I was making was shit. And then someone sends me music and go like, this sounds like a fucking professionally produced album. That impressed me because I understood the thing. And so with AI, I'm just not impressed because even if someone sends me something that I think is cool, I know that if I paid the same subscription you did and inputted the same prompt that you did, I would also have made that the same exact song. And so that instantly makes me not excited or interested in the process of it being made or talking to another person as an artist in that way because I wouldn't respect them in that same way. But I wouldn't begrudge anyone for doing it. It's just like sort of my personal thing. It's like it's a weird back like it's a wishy-washy sort of thing, but basically it's like I don't care if people use the tools, but I'm not excited to talk to them about it. And I feel like playing AI music would detract from actual people making music. So even if I hear an AI song that is cool, I'm like, why would I play it on the show? I could generate my own. Like what am I supporting if I play your AI music? I can make AI music. I know how. It's not hard. So I could just make my own. I could just populate my show to the rest of time with my own AI generations, never answer a single email again, never acknowledge anybody. And I could do that. But that wouldn't be fun and I wouldn't be motivated to continue making that or gratified or, so that's why I made that decision. So it's not like a moral judgment. It's not, I'm against AI music. It's just, it doesn't it doesn't move me to talk to anybody who makes it. And I feel like playing it would only take away time from people who do. So that's that. And if I hear cool AM music, I'll just listen to it myself at my house by myself and I won't share it with anybody. And which I have done because I made some joke songs that are funny to me that have like my friends' names in them. And we listen to them and laugh, but they're not for sale. And I wouldn't claim to have made like, I'm so talented. I made this Eurodance song that's got my buddy's name in it. Aren't I great? Like, I didn't do anything. I paid $30 to Suno and I typed in a paragraph about my friend. Like, that's all I did. And even then, I probably didn't even have to do that. I probably could have taken a picture of my friend and then tell ChatGPT to write lyrics about the person in the photo, and it probably would have been accurate. That's the worst part. It's like he'll take a picture of my buddy and just be like, probably tell from his hat and his shirt what he likes. Oh, he likes this band. Does he like this, this, and this? I bet you could probably guess his job just by looking at him. Anyway, sorry, that's more of dystopian stuff. The point is,
the bottom line is, if you
can you
want to
hear
hear
my
real
stomach?
human music and
My
hear
tummy's
Andy
rumbling.
talking to real human artists, you can head over to beyondsynth.com. And on that note, thanks everybody for listening. And for once, I actually do know how to end this perfectly, so I'll do so now.
Anyways, look, goodbye.